Welcome and thank you for joining me. Timestamps are in the description box. Let's get straight to our stories. Story number 1. Opie writes, 14 years into my marriage and into what I thought had been one of our happiest years, my husband had an emotional affair with a married woman. They would be lay partners during the day while I was working, going to school or caring for our 2 children. Just 3 weeks into knowing one another, they left their spouses and started a life together. But not after spreading so many lies about the state of our marriage. That we were just roommates, I wasn't supportive, our marriage had been dead, all lies. We divorced just 3 months later, a week after our 15th anniversary. Now, 3 years later, they are engaged. I have had a lot of therapy and struggled with severe depression during this time period, but have worked very hard to make sure my kids are having a wonderful life, to the extent that I've made pains not to speak poorly about the ex and the girlfriend in front of them. They deserved to be able to feel like they can love those 2 without somehow feeling like they are betraying me. Well, now they absolutely love her and have a fully formed family. Their engagement has suddenly put legitimacy around how they started their relationship with others. As though what they did to create their relationship was somehow okay because they ended up together. It makes me feel like a throwaway human, easily replaceable. As though my pain is no longer valid because they were, quote, meant to be, unquote. It's hitting me really hard. And quite frankly, I have so many feelings about this being unfair. Why do they get the happy ending and the family that I once had? Why did they get to be the affair exception to the rule and not only stay together but thrive? And why the heck do I still feel this level of pain 3 years later? I feel as though I'm the only one being punished here, and for something I didn't do. And a little over a year later, we have this update from Opie. In September of last year, affair partner seemed like an absolute wreck and asked to come to my place to talk. I had been keeping my distance from her, but she is a person with heavy involvement in my kids' lives. And if she was experiencing something difficult enough that she'd come to me, of all people, I should at least listen. Such an idiotic mistake. She told me that my ex-husband had been gaslighting her, that he had promised her children and immediately gone back on that once engaged. And she wanted to leave but was torn about the impact on the kids. I told her that it's her decision, but if she leaves again, to not come back. The last time she left was devastating to my kids. She also expressed that her parents kept trying to get her to leave because they worried about her mental safety, thinking my ex is a narcissist. He is, and no, he isn't safe. But up to that point, she seemed to be the same. She went on about all the love bombing and apologizing for her part in my pain. Apparently, getting to that point made her realize what I had experienced and that I wasn't the villain he had portrayed me to be. She ended up leaving my ex and moving to Florida. She messaged me a lot at first for support. She talked about the crazy things he was saying and doing to try to get her back, all while he had already started a new relationship immediately. She was grateful to have someone who understood what it was like to have been in a complex, emotionally abusive relationship style like this. We weren't friends, I'll say that. It was more like a support group style chat. Once she settled in and started dating, she checked in about once a month. I last heard from her in mid-April. She and her boyfriend had broken up. My ex had also broken up with the new woman, who he had already introduced the kids to, and he had been sending her messages again. She was upset, but said she blocked him. Then, late May, I received a message from her that earlier in the month, after, quote, transformative time apart, unquote, she and my ex had secretly gotten married. The kids were being told about it the same time I was, and she was driving to Colorado to move in the next day. On the kid pickup day, I asked if we could all talk. Obviously, what's done is done, but I wanted to tell them that I worry about them doing the cycle of leaving again to the kids, and to talk about our parenting schedule. When she left, I agreed to temporarily schedule where I had the kids more often while my ex figured out some things. The ex then called me controlling for making him go back to our legal schedule and said, deep breath, that the reason they didn't work out the first time was because I made it hard for them. And if I don't want the kids to experience something like her leaving again, then I shouldn't make it hard for them this time. She then chimed in that I simply don't want him to be happy and never have. That all she said when she left was just words out of place of sadness and needing support, but she didn't mean them. She was basically using my own trauma and experience in my divorce and twisting it to make me sympathetic to her and use me for support, which makes no sense to me. Why try to keep contact with me like this if you weren't experiencing these things? I lost my crap, yelled and screamed like a crazy person. I've never done that before. I was furious that they would blame all of their difficulties in a relationship that came out of both of them cheating on their spouses on me not making it easier for them and also putting their future success on my shoulders. My ex has always put everything that makes his life difficult for him as being my fault, always, and that was part of his abuse. It still hits me in a hard way and he knows it. I absolutely hate that I gave them the fuel they need to paint a picture that I'm crazy and they are somehow the heroes of their story. The worst part is that the kids heard me yelling. That hurts so badly. I never want them to feel the pain that comes from interparent yelling like I was doing. My ex and the affair partner then made me apologize to the kids for my behavior, which was demeaning. I always talk to my kids about things and would have discussed what I did and said and how I felt, gave them room to talk about how they felt, and may have been hurt on my own and without them standing over me, but they need the story framed in a certain way. Then affair partner sends me an email saying she appreciated my support and understands why I may feel the way I do, but that she's in it for the long haul and will be, quote, best stepmom ever, unquote. I ignored it. Anyway, that's the update. I feel angry and emotional and really sad that this circus is my life until the kids are adults. OP, as you said, what's done is done. It's no use beating yourself up over this. You've learned from this and you know now that it's best to only communicate with your ex and his now new wife about things involving the children. And the reason your ex said all those things to you and she was in on it, it's probably because of all the things she told you about him. You said earlier in your first post, why do they get the happy family that was yours once? Well, OP, they don't really seem all that happy to me, despite the fact that they've gotten married. And they don't like that you know things aren't great between them. You said that in mid-April he started sending her messages, and by late May they were married. OP, there is no way that they've sorted out all the issues in that time. I think these problems are going to resurface, and they're both upset and probably embarrassed that you know so much about their relationship. Keep it civil and formal between you and them. You, OP, are not responsible for their relationship success or failure. And on to story number 2. OP writes, boyfriend and I were supposed to go camping with 2 of his best friends and the significant others to celebrate his birthday. He's been saying for weeks that it doesn't look like he's going to be able to go because he can't find a babysitter for his kids. Then, last night he asked me if I could babysit his 2 kids, plus one of my own, for the weekend so at least he could go camping with his friends. He said, quote, it came down to hurting my friends or hurting you, unquote. And he chose me, justifying it with, quote, I'll make it up to you, unquote. And a bunch of apologies. When I expressed how offended I was that he chose to hurt me because he thought I'd get over it eventually, he laid the guilt on me with, quote, I thought you'd want to help. We love each other, and I thought you'd want to help me, unquote. I hadn't even said no yet, by the way. I had just expressed to him that I was hurt. I had just assumed that if he couldn't find a babysitter, we wouldn't go, as in both of us. When he told his friends that I was upset about this and that he probably couldn't go, one of them actually said, quote, why is she pissed? I requested time off work for this, unquote. Am I the a-hole for being pissed that he doesn't even see why I'm offended? He dropped our plans with his friends to go hang out with his friends solo while expecting me to watch 3 young kids the whole time. He not only doesn't see it like this, but keeps mentioning how he's surprised I wouldn't do this for him. The next day, he broke up with me. Update. First, thank you for all your support. A lot of you are saying things like, quote, don't take him back, unquote, and, quote, when he comes crawling back, unquote. And I'm just curious as to why many of you think that could even be an option. Only asking because he was so angry at the end that I can't imagine he'd even realize what a great girl he had enough to even contact me. When I told him I felt gaslighted, he flipped the F out. Wouldn't even let me explain. Told me I was toxic for him and that since he was recently given a new lease on life, health-wise, he doesn't want any of that in his life now. I was holding back tears and asked him if we can just talk things through, but he wasn't having it. I honestly doubt he'll even be sad about any of this. Final update. I reached out to him like a fool in love and texted me back confirming he wants nothing to do with me romantically. Well, OP, I think you are better off without him. He doesn't care about your feelings. He even told you he doesn't care if it hurts you. And on top of that, he's emotionally manipulative. Yes, I do understand, OP, that it's upsetting that you thought that you meant more to him than this, but you said yourself that you don't think he's even sad about the breakup. This is another case of bullet dodged. On we go to story number 3. OP writes, context. My 27 female boyfriend, Chris, male 29, is the absolute pickiest eater I have ever met. No, he doesn't have food allergies. No, he has no intolerances. He's just picky. I don't blame him for that. His mom didn't know how to cook a whole lot, so Chris's palate adjusted to it. Since we've been together though, we have worked on cooking dinners with one another to try and find things with ingredients he'll enjoy that may be outside his comfort zone. Anyway, last night my parents said they would love to go to dinner with Chris and I. My parents live in another part of the state and I don't see them often, so I ran it by Chris and we made plans. The restaurant was a new seafood place that opened close to where we live. Since I knew how picky Chris can be, I asked him to look over the menu before we went so that he would make sure there would be something there that he'd eat. He told me he looked it over and would have the salmon. Fast forward to this evening when we all sat down to eat and he made a disgusted face looking at the menu. I asked what was wrong and he told me there's nothing he'd eat. My parents looked a bit hurt. So I pulled Chris aside and said that I couldn't believe he'd do this, that if he wouldn't like the food he had all of yesterday and most of today to pick a different restaurant. I then commented that I was just annoyed by his picky eating because now it's hurting my parents, and left the restaurant with him after apologizing to my parents. He told me that he was in shock that I didn't defend him and that I, quote, should have known, unquote, he would be unhappy and was being a total a-hole for publicly humiliating, quote, what he can't control, unquote. Am I the a-hole? Quick edit about the salmon. I had asked him about that, and I guess the problem is he read the menu again and saw how it was prepared, like he didn't care for the seasoning that was going to be on the salmon. Edit. Oh geez, this started blowing up far more than I expected. I'm sorry I'm not able to respond to all of your comments, but I have read them and really appreciate all your support and kind words. I'm going to spend some quality time with my parents to see a movie the 3 of us enjoy, and Chris will not be attending. Update. A lot of these comments have really opened my eyes, and I'm not sure that this is someone I would be okay to spend my life with. Unfortunately, at this moment in time, Chris and I are living together and split bills 50-50 with both our names on the lease. Most likely, when the lease is up, I'll be living by myself though and reevaluating my relationship. My parents and I also had a wonderful time with a movie last night, did some catching up, and guess what? We're going out for seafood tonight because we all want to. Well, OP, I do understand why you were upset with Chris. He did see the menu beforehand, the day before, and he said that he was okay with it, that there was something he wanted to eat. But I guess he didn't read the menu properly, which is the least he could have done. So the problem here, I would say, is not just that he's a picky eater, it's that he didn't meet you halfway. He didn't take a good look at that menu, and he knew that this was an important dinner to you because it was with your parents. And as you said, you don't see them that often. I mean, let's face it, all of us have food that we like and that we don't like, but he is a bit over the top, as you said, when it comes to food. And hopefully he will become more adventurous when it comes to what he eats. Well, that's it for now. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. Please consider subscribing, leave me a comment, and I'll see you again next time. Take care of yourself. Bye.